why I find that building web applications is very interesting is its reach and the capabilities that you can put into them are infinite. And one of the really cool things about web applications is because of that infinite reach, you can basically carve off a piece of the world and say, we are going to solve this. Come to us that we have tackled this part of the solution for you that you could build upon.
And I thought, how hard could this be? Ruby on Rails, I did hear some things about it. Maybe it's a little immature and not as good as Java, but I decided to look into it. And when I did, I found this amazing framework that was able to take me to where I would get to Java in much longer and write much more code in much fewer steps. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
I think what I like about AngularJS is that it allows developers to develop the web applications on the client side very quickly, but at the same time, it doesn't sacrifice the correctness of design and correctness of architecture.
So in the last few years, MongoDB and Ruby on Rails have become extremely popular, and there has been a wide industry acceptance and vendor acceptance on these technologies. And Ruby and Mongo, have reached a so-called a sweet spot or melting point, so to speak.
Students will find this class to be very interesting because everything is about the web. Accessing it, using information in interesting and valuable ways, and getting your ideas implemented quickly and out to people. And Rails is exactly that. Take like the Twitters of the world. They're taking a lot of the responsibility for getting information out to people, whether they be critical world events or soccer practice is late tonight. The same technology is bit in there. One of the cool things about this specialization is it's going to take the student through and say, here's how you build a lot of these things. Here are a lot of the decisions that you have to make. Here's how these things come together. And you can put yourself in a situation of being able to build applications like those.
So I think how Ruby on Rails is different than a lot of bigger web development frameworks out there is that Ruby on Rails is really all about rapid prototyping. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you have this amazing idea. You wake up in the morning, you jot the idea down on a napkin, and you run to a big bank because your idea needs about $50,000 to borrow for it to succeed. And you're met by a fancy clerk in a big bank, and the clerk says, well, we need a business plan. You can't just have a bunch of points on a napkin. And it's going to take 3 or 4 months to be able to process the idea, and maybe it will approve you, maybe it won't approve you. And you're devastated. You're like, this is a great idea, you don't understand. And the clerk says, no, I'm sorry, rules are rules. And you run out of a bank and you go to a small bank, and the person in the small bank looks over your points on a napkin and he says, you know what, I think we'll go for it. And he just goes to a back room and comes out with money and gives you money, and you're able to start your idea on that same day. And 3 months down the line, you are able to really develop the idea and you start making money. So to me, Ruby on Rails is that small bank, right? It's that idea of rapid prototyping that the time to market is much faster. With a bigger framework, it might take you a year and your idea might succeed, might not succeed, you never know. But with a small framework like Ruby on Rails that also enables you to rapidly prototype, you're able to quickly develop your idea, ship it. And that's actually exactly what happened to Twitter. Twitter used Ruby on Rails, and Twitter got big pretty fast, and it was able to develop its idea quickly. So we built this specialization to consist of 5 courses. Course 1 is going to be teaching you the basic flow of how the information comes in and being able to build an application that is a functional application. In course 2, we are going to actually use a database and learn about how to interact with a database. That's going to be course 2.
So MongoDB is a document-oriented open source database which basically lets you store JSON documents, and it also has a lot of advantages, like it's highly scalable, highly available, and gives you a lot of these things right out of the box. So in course 3 we'll talk about MongoDB and open source document-oriented database and implementation of NoSQL database. And we'll also look into how MongoDB fits in well with Ruby on Rails and lets you build really lightweight, but at the same time, large-scale, scalable applications. So many of the large companies like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, these companies use REST API quite a bit, integrating REST API with their lightweight web framework to get the data, display the data on the web application. It's a very common practice that you see out there in the industry today.
As full stack web developers, we need to understand that no matter how great our server-side code is, and no matter how fast we developed it, if we developed it in Ruby on Rails and kind of gave our product out the door very quickly, what the user is going to end up seeing is they're going to end up seeing the front end. That's what they interact with. And if the user interaction and user experience is not good, then all the glory of the server side is really going to be kind of lost. So in course number 4, we're going to concentrate on the technologies that is really the lifeblood of every web application, and that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. By the end of course 4, you'll be able to take a design or even an idea for a design and turn it into a real website. So AngularJS is a open source framework developed and backed by Google that addresses a lot of the issues with front-end web development and simplifies web development, that you're able to actually push out your products out the door much faster and easier. So by the end of course 5, you'll be able to build a full web application where majority of the functionality will actually live on the client side, and you'll be able to push out that product very quickly using AngularJS framework.
The student in the class is not going to be alone in their workshop building code and turning it in a vacuum. They're going to be able to post early on in the courses their solutions to the web. And as we add technologies and add capabilities, they'll be able to add those to those applications available for many to see. So they'll be able to show their family, their friends, their coworkers, their employers, their future employers, depending on what the case may be. They'll be able to share in a very quick and open manner a lot of the work they've been working on. And by the end of the overall capstone, you'll have completed a full back-end, front-end, managed in Gits, deployed to Heroku, full web application that you're able to sit back and proudly advertise to all your friends, family, coworkers, and employers.